Okay, so we're now into the third part of this, and all we're going to try and do now is link the two documents. So the two exports that we've done, we're going to want to link them together into one file. So I've got my two files open here. I've got term 3 week 4, and which I exported from KMAR with all those fields. And I've also got the other file, which is the term 3 week 4 data, which we exported through that report of secondary student achievement. So let's start with the secondary achievement data. What I'm going to do, just very quickly, I'm going to tidy that. I don't need that column there. NSN number, NSI it comes across. Probably don't need to have to rename that, but I will do. Now, the only other information I need from this one is all of this stuff here. Okay, so all of this information here is their individual subjects per option line and how many credits the students have achieved so far. If you don't want to muck around with the other file, then there's plenty of information here. You know, things like attendance, the number of credits at each level, how many they're enrolled for, literacy, numeracy, gender, ethnicity. So if that's just good enough for you, then just go for that report. But we're wanting to manipulate stuff a little bit more. So I'm going to link this with the stuff I've already exported. I'm just going to highlight all of this in the middle. And I am just going to opposite mouse click and delete. I don't need the 7th subject, so I'm also going to basically delete all the way up to here. So that's just cleaned it up. So basically the information now in this bit is all I need. So the NSN number, if you double click here, it'll just expand. That's the student's NSN, their national number, not the KMAR ID. So NSN number, and I've got their subjects, their credit. So I know that that student, that relates to one student, and here are the subjects they've taken and how many credits they've got so far. All I'm going to do now is shortcuts, Control A, which means control all, which is really, really handy when you've got a massive document like this, like say 1,389 rows of data. So Control A will select all of those. I'm then just going to hit copy, boom. And now I'm going to open up my other spreadsheet, which was the term 3 week 4 one that I've exported from KMAR. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste the information I've just taken into a new sheet. So down here, open a new sheet, and yeah, you can just do paste, boom. So I've now got all the new information, or all the information I've copied from the other sheet onto my first one that I've exported. But what I'm going to do is actually rename this, and I'm actually going to call this subjects. So while it's still highlighted, I'm just going to call this section subjects. So we've now called this entire box subjects. So when I refer to it later in a formula, whenever I type in subjects, Excel knows that it's looking for this. And also to keep things nice and tidy, I will call this subjects. Simple as that. So now I'm basically just going to work on this one file. Okay, this thing here. Okay, NSN. So just to make sure that it matches up nicely with the other one, I'm just going to do that. Now, I do a few little things now. All I'm wanting to do is transfer the subject data that corresponds to the student in here in the far right-hand columns. Now, if you remember before, I said about I also export parents' emails and things like that. I'm going to basically just hide that information, so I can basically work in these end columns here. So nice and simple. Well, let's make it really simple because all these headings annoy me to start with. If I highlight these and then just tell it to rotate the text up, and then if I select the entire spreadsheet, double click, it actually immediately looks a little bit nicer and easier to see where I'm actually working. So I'm going to hide those, boom. And now I've got my columns where I'm going to transfer the data for these people, for their subjects in. So all I'm going to do is use a formula or a function called VLOOKUP, and the V stands for vertical, so it's going to look for vertical information, it's going to look it up, and if it finds a match, it's going to populate the cell. Sounds very confusing, and like I say, I'm not a nerd, this is purely a bit of Google. So all I'm going to do is go back into subjects, I'm just going to copy these headings, nice and simple, opposite, copy, I'm going to go back in here, hit that and go paste, boom. So now it's got all my subjects across here. Once again, I can turn those, rotate up. So they're nice and simple. So all I'm going to do now, I want to find the first subject for this student right here. This student right here, I want to find his first subject. The way we do that is using VLOOKUP. So I'm just going to go in this cell. I want the cell to equal VLOOKUP. Lookup, open bracket, the lookup value, where do I want it to look up? I want it to look up here. I want it to start with A2 and start searching from there. But we put the little $sign in so that when I actually copy the formula, it will basically go down for me. So basically I'm saying start there. I put in a comma. It's now asking for the table array. Now the table array is just a fancy name for what we called subjects. So I'm saying have a look in subjects. Now it's asking for the column number. So basically the first column was the NSN number. So the second column actually in my subjects data was the first option line that they've taken. So I'm going to say pick the second column. And the final things, I want a exact match. So it's a bit back to front really, but you'd think that if you wanted an exact match, you would go for true, but you don't. So I want an exact match, so I'm just going to type false, close brackets. Now this is where the magic comes in, hopefully. I hit return, and straight away it has found 12 eco. Okay, so I know that this student here, okay, quick check, they're a year 12 student. Yeah, so this person here is doing subject, first line, option line is 12 economics. All I'm going to do now is if I just double click, so once my little cursor, hover it over there, turns into a black plus, double click, and it will just populate the entire spreadsheet with the correct one. So I now need to move across and do credits. So rather than type it all out again, that's the only time I need to type this. Okay, all I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag. So I'm going to click and hold and drag the box across, release. Obviously it's given me 12 eco. So I'm just going to come back up here and say from the subject starter, I want the third column, and it will pull across the credits. So I can then double click. It will find the credits. Boom, all 1,388 students. Come back here. I now want the fourth column of the subject data, so there should be another subject code. Excellent. Double click here, drag across. So this is a really kind of efficient way. I've learned all these workarounds from days of purely just entering all this each time in a cell, but this little drag feature over here that copies the formula across is a massive time saver. So yeah, just bear with me while I just complete this. Boom, drag across, click in there. I now want the seventh column. Okay, double click, single click, drag across, single click. Change this to the eighth column in my data. Double click, drag across. Once you get into this, it's just a bit of a mind-numbing process to get all this sorted. But like I say, it doesn't actually take long at all. And all of a sudden you've merged two really data-rich spreadsheets together in one. Really useful information. So these sheets have evolved, I guess, over 4 years with lots of feedback from tutors and deans about what would be useful, what they would like to see on them. Let's just get this into 12. And double click. this is tutor group for most, but some of our students do a 6th subject. Not many, but if they do the 6th subject and I haven't included this, it never gets to be shown. So there it is. There's for every student in my spreadsheet, I now have their entire option line data as well. And that's it. That's how you merge 2 spreadsheets. Obviously, you would then just save this. But now, if it's just a CSV, it will give you, it says, do you want to keep using that format? No, we don't. Basically, all we want to do, I will save it on my desktop again, but down here, I'm just going to change this to Excel workbook. Make it an Excel file, save, and there I am. So this is the only file now that I will continue to work on. The old file, which was down here in terms of the data, I can totally disregard that. I can delete that. I don't even need to save it, because basically that data, if you remember, I've just copied across into this table here, which we called subjects, enabled subjects, and then we used it to basically VLOOKUP and pull data into this spreadsheet. Really, really simplistic and a lovely time saver.